My name is Hannes Stuckler, and I own Lander Defense, which is a self-defense company for people who like guns in Lander, Wyoming. And we're going to do an experiment out here today on the Lander home range to confirm that some advice that I've been given is actually valid advice, and so that I can give it to my students with confidence. A little background on the experiment. One of the things that we're very big on at Lander Defense is dry fire practice with a firearm. That means pulling the trigger when there is no bullet in the chamber, and that allows you to work on a lot of your fundamentals. I won't bore you with the details here, but one of the dangers of that, of course, is one of the rules of firearm safety is that treat every gun like it's loaded. So here we have a conundrum. We're practicing without bullets in the gun, but we need to treat the gun like it's loaded. And one of the beauties of dry fire practice is you can do it at home with the assumption that the gun's not loaded. So you see the problem. So my stopgap for this is to have a backstop when you're dry fire practicing that will stop a bullet. So every time you practice, you're going to assume that it's going to fire a live round, which of course is not the desired outcome, but we want to make sure everybody's safe if it does that. It probably won't if you followed all the right safety procedures, which are taught in the classes. So one of the things that I recommend is a bucket full of gravel. And that was recommended to me, and I've never actually tested it, so I'm reasonably certain it'll work, at least for the calibers that I practice with. But what we're going to do is we are going to shoot some buckets full of gravel to confirm that they will in fact stop a bullet effectively. For this experiment today, we are going to try a variety of things. Let's talk about the gravel first. What we have is pea gravel. This is the medium that we're going to be using in various buckets. As you can see, it's just hardware store grade pea gravel. That will be in the buckets. And we're going to be shooting several of these 2-gallon buckets. These are very typical. You can get them from grocery stores and bakery department, usually for free. I like to use them as targets out here on the home range because they're almost free or completely free, depending where I get them. So we're going to be shooting center of the bucket, and then we're going to take a shot to the side to confirm that it'll stop both of those. As far as the cartridges that we're going to be testing, we have a variety because we want to try some extremes. The most commonly used for practice is a 9mm handgun, so this is a 9mm round. The other end of the handgun extreme is a 44 Magnum round. This is with a 300 grain bullet, non-expanding, with a fairly heavy powder charge behind it. This is my Bear cartridge when I'm out in the backcountry. If it's going to fail with a handgun round, it will fail with that one because that is a very high penetrating round. Also, you'll note that I'm not using hollow points for the 9mm because hollow points penetrate less. So we want something that will give us a worst case penetration, and that this is a solid projectile. In the rifles we're going to be testing, we have the 223, which is shot out of the modern sporting rifle, the evil AR-15 that we hear about in the news. It's definitely a favorite practice gun because it doesn't cost very much to shoot and there's very little recoil. The next cartridge we're going to be testing here is a 6.5 by 55 Swedish Mauser cartridge. It is ballistically very similar to a lot of modern cartridges used today. Particularly popular right now is the 6.5 Creedmoor, as well as a 260 Remington, so we can expect very similar performance. I forgot what it's called. I've been shooting them for years. It's the cartridge the bullet we're going to be shooting out of this cartridge is a Remington Core Locked, which is a high penetration hunting cartridge. And then for giggles, we're going to shoot the bucket with a 45-70. This has a hollow point on it because I don't have any solid projectiles for it right now. But if it's going to fail with a rifle cartridge, I expect it to fail probably with the 45-70. So those are the cartridges that we're going to be using, and you'll see the various guns are being shot out of as we do it. So let's get to it. First dead center, we ready? Okay, so that was the 9mm. As you saw, the front end shot just went in and stopped. What we're really looking at here is this side shot. We want to see if we exited the bucket anywhere, because we clearly got fragged by a bunch of gravel. And you can see it peeled the bucket back, but there's no actual exit from the bullet, which means it may have got trapped inside the gravel bucket, but we're not sure at this point. Okay? So we're going to start dumping gravel out here and see what we find. It's sort of like prospecting for gold, I guess. That's plastic. I thought it was a bullet fragment, but it's plastic. That is a bullet fragment right there. So as you can see, the bullet, let me get some light on that. The bullet hit the gravel and largely, it looks like it shed about half of its weight. And that's a good thing. That's what you want it to do. One of the reasons for using gravel is it breaks up bullets. And there are little lead flakes inside of this for sure. And apparently a cigarette butt. That looks like, there's the other bullet fragment. So we captured both of them in the gravel, and that's what I was trying to show, is that even though we hit this on the side and it blew gravel all over the place, the bullet stayed in the bucket. And that to me is the important thing. So I would call that a pass. Now let's get a fresh bucket and try the 44 Magnum, because the 44 should give us a little more exciting outcome. Okay, next shot, 44 Magnum, dead center. Let's see how this goes. A lot more power than that 9mm we just did. So this was the center of mass shot with the 44 Magnum. We definitely displaced a bunch of gravel out of the bucket, but if you study any physics, you understand that this is an inelastic collision. So the energy from the 44 bullet transferred into the bucket, into the little bits of gravel which flew, but not enough to hurt anybody, which is exactly what we want if something goes wrong. There is no bulging on the back of the bucket, so the energy did not transfer all the way through the bucket, even with that great big cartridge. So now we're going to just shake this back down. We're going to try our side shot. I'm going to try and put it right in here somewhere. And I expect this to be rather spectacular. 44 Magnum, side shot. So 44 Magnum, we got the side shot on there. I don't know if you saw that, but the bucket rotated. That was good. That's transferring energy from the bullet into the bucket, which means even if the bullet exited, which it doesn't look like it did. That's actually, I was expecting it to be a lot worse than that. But what we have here is an entry and a big shattering of the bucket. Not as bad as the 9mm. I think I was a little closer to the inside on this one, but that was not an unreasonable placement of shot for good dry fire practice. One of the key things in this is that we have to make sure we dry fire practice we're not so far back that we're hitting the edges of the bucket, top, bottom, sides. We want to be close enough so that we can get a good center shot. You know, all your dry fire shots, that is no bullet, should land right about here. So if there is a bullet, it won't you know, rip the side of the bucket out and blow gravel all over the place. It should stop it effectively, which I'm really kind of surprised it did. This is neat stuff. So let's pour this out and let's take a look at those bullets and see what's left of them. Let's do a little lead mining here and see what those bullets look like. Oh, there you are. Here's one of them. As you can see, there's still a substantial amount of weight left. We've seriously deformed the face of the bullet, but again, it stayed in the bucket, so that's just fine. We're gonna put that right there and keep looking. I didn't find the second bullet, even though I know it's here, but it's remarkably similar in size to a piece of pea gravel, so it probably slipped past me. Maybe it'll show up later. But now we're ready for the next test. We're going to go to the smallest rifle round, which is the 223. Shot out of the modern sporting rifle. Okay, that was the 223 with a 55 grain full metal jacket. There is a hole. You can kind of see it right there. It's pretty tiny. It's only a 22 caliber. So there it is. There is absolutely no deforming of the bucket, which is pretty much what I expected. This is a very lightweight bullet, and it tends to stop rather quickly when it intercepts anything because of its lightweight. So that's what I'm expecting. Let's do a side shot. Okay, that was a second shot with the 223 on the side. Let's see what we have here. We have a nice entry hole, not even any deformation to the bucket. Not entirely what I expected. Typically rifle rounds have more energy than pistol rounds, but the 223 is a fairly low power rifle round. I guess I'm a little disappointed, but it's good because it means that this is very safe to dry fire practice with, even with a rifle, which I also highly recommend doing. So let's dump this out and see what we get. Okay, As you can see, we didn't see anything at all, and I expect those bullets to completely disintegrate at that velocity. It's 3,000 feet per second going into the gravel. Tends to blow things apart. And that's one of the advantages of using pea gravel as opposed to sand, is it will disintegrate a rifle bullet. Okay, so we sort of lost audio in our recordings at this point, but what you're going to see is shooting at the bucket, and that one you just saw was a 6.5 Swedish Mauser. You saw the bucket jumped a little bit. There was no exit, and you'll see in a moment that we took a shot from the side, and although it knocked the bucket off and emptied it, it didn't actually exit from the bucket. That's what I'm trying to show you in this picture here. But you can't hear what I'm saying, so, you know, it's weird talking about myself talking. I don't know. So, what we're going to do now is look at the bucket and see if there are any bullet fragments that we can find, because that will tell us a little bit about what happened. Now, the process we use is pretty much the same as, I'm going to say it's the same as panning for gold, but I've never panned for gold. So, you know, we're just going to sort through it, look for chunks of lead. Okay, that was a 45-70. And the reason we jumped right to that is because we didn't find any fragments from anything else. 45-70 is a much bigger rifle, much more powerful cartridge, and although it knocked the bucket off, you saw that there was no exit, and that's exactly what we're looking for. And now we're pulling up a bullet fragment, and here it is. This is what's left of that 45-70 bullet, and you can see it's lost a whole bunch of its weight, which is perfect. That's what you want. It means the energy is dissipated and nobody's getting hurt, even though the gun, you know, technically might have fired by accident if you were practicing. So that's what we want to have in a target backstop for dry fire practice. I'm not sure what I'm saying in this video because, you know, I'm obviously doing something with my hands while I'm talking. Here's another bullet fragment right here. I believe this might be one of the deer rifle cartridges, that 6.5 Swedish Mauser, or might be a chunk off of the 45-70. It's hard to tell because it's so heavily mangled. So in conclusion, a bucket full of gravel is an excellent choice as a dry fire backstop because it will stop any common handgun or rifle cartridges as you've seen here. So use that information as you see fit. Of course, you know, everything at your own discretion. And if you're not sure, you know, test it yourself safely at a range using all the procedures. And there you go. Get yourself some good instruction, and I'll see you around.